Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Economics Monday on IBM TV. We have a great group and a great panelist who's going to be joining us. The Honorable David Walker will be here in about 30 minutes, but I'd like to introduce some of our other guests coming in from Italy. Let's welcome Roberto Sparano. Roberto, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
All right. And then we have from Canada a person who you've seen before on Investing with Sasha, the TV star, Sasha Star. Sasha, welcome to the show. And we have to have an American. So we have our token American. This guy hails from Greenwich, Connecticut. Peter Bennett. Peter from Modern Investing, welcome to the show. Yep. And we're going to add one more flavorful person, and this person actually is going to be beaming in from the Salt Lake City area. He's actually the former associate dean of the University of South Dakota School of Law and sits on the board of the South Dakota Trust Company. Let's welcome in Daniel Worthington. Dr. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Okay. So on Economics Monday, we will be discussing, of course, since this is beamed across the world, just a couple of housekeeping tools. Roberto, I will be actually, wait, we got one more person coming in. I'll talk to Roberto in just a minute because I got some exciting news for him. But let's bring in this one other person. He hails actually from the area called Australia. He's down under. He manages a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund or money management, whatever. And his name is Shaquille Latimer. Shaquille, down under. So now the Americans are almost outnumbered. What?
I am gainfully unemployed now. So.
Did you sell your company finally?
Well, it's being sorted out now. So I will no longer be the money manager of anything.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to be unemployed. You're going to be like me almost.
Yeah, I'm gonna fly to Mexico, sneak across the border, and get some of that money that you guys are giving away.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, you're certainly in the right place. So yeah. So congratulations. You know the deal isn't done till it's done. But
That's right.
I guess it's like a boat owning a company. The best day is when you start it. The next best day is when you sell it and get rid of it and you retire and do whatever you're going to do. Well, you know what? You actually have a future maybe in media. You know, so anyway, something we'll have to discuss. You'll be like Mark Cuban and who's that other guy? Oh, Donald Trump. There we go. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I'm not sure my tan is quite the right shade, but we'll work on it.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is, your future is in media, so just realize that. So you can forget that. So Roberto, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods for about a month. I got a condo, a 2-bedroom condo in Florence for August 15th to September 17th. So I'm going to be there. And so I could probably meet up with you in Rome because my wife and I are going to be bebopping around. We're going to go to Zurich. We're going to go to Athens. We're going to go to Paris and Amsterdam. So I'm just going to hang out. And then I'm going to go go to all the other cities.
Don't forget Venice.
I've been to Venice. We'll probably go to Venice, Siena, Padua. So our apartment is in Florence, but we're not going to be there. We're going to be dropping our stuff off and immediately hitting the trains and traveling. But I guess you know how that goes. But we'll be able to catch up when we're in Florence. And Peter, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods this week. I'm heading to New York City Wednesday for a week. Okay. And if we can't,
you just try to rub it into those of us that can't travel.
Well, you're stuck in Sydney. Okay.
I flew up to Brisbane to watch my dogs in the race.
Oh, really?
We came sixth, so we won't talk about that any further. Flew back to Sydney, and I was feeling a little bit under the weather. I thought it was just that I was hungover, but there was something going around. Got better, and the next day we went into a lockdown because of the Delta variant. So I'm not going anywhere other than home until the 9th of July. And we are, who knows when, going to get the vaccines in this country. So I think I'm stuck here.
Yeah, I just don't believe Australia not getting the vaccines. You locked your country down, then you didn't get the vaccine, and so now you're all stuck in Australia. I mean, what sort of leadership do you have down under there, mate?
Good conservative leadership.
Oh, is that what that is? That's called good conservative leadership. Okay.
No, look, I think there's a number of issues there, but we have the AstraZeneca vaccine come out, and then of course there's been some scares with that, and we're behind with Pfizer. However, I know that there's been some diplomatic spats between Australia and Italy, and Australia and France. But I think that most Australians are going to say, look, people in my age group, 50 and under, 40 and under, we can probably wait for a bit. They've still got huge issues in the UK. They've still got huge issues across Europe. Let them have the vaccine. We can wait a bit. It's annoying, but I think that that's probably the right thing for us to do as a country.
Yeah, we have one more person joining us. He's actually a city councilman in Morrisville. Yeah, he's actually going to come in. He's a real politician. Yeah, I think he's our only real politician on. He actually runs the world edition on the IBM TV network. Let's bring in Stephen Rao. Stephen, welcome to the show. Oh, yeah,
Good morning.
Forgot about it. Yes.
Namaste.
Yes, can I just point out that he's wearing red? So that's.
I'm a Democrat.
He's a Democrat. You're gonna have to deal with him, Shaquille.
No, Senator Joe Manchin is actually a good friend of mine. I worked on his campaign for governor of West Virginia in 1996, and I'm from the Mountaineer State. I was actually thinking of the senator yesterday. Our favorite song is "Country Roads" from West Virginia. I was running yesterday, and I thought of him, but I am a moderate Democrat. Believe it or not, we do exist. So, but it's a pleasure to meet all of you around the world. And with Sasha Starr again, who's a guest on my show, and Shaquille Latimer, and just so much going on in the world, and it's an honor to be here.
And he runs the hardest show on the IBM TV network because it goes on 5 days a week. I don't know how you do it, Steve. I'm having a hard time with 1 day, let alone 5 days. But Shaquille might be available more often because he turns into becoming unemployed in the next couple of weeks. So he's going to be looking for a job.
Like the $0 manager. He doesn't know anything about economics and finance. Claims to be retired at 37, but he's actually just unemployed. It's just a bum.
I've been unemployed for 37 years. I'm totally familiar with it.
It was something I was striving to be a bum, and now I can be. It's brilliant.
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you
wish granted.
Well, real quickly, but a funny story before we get into some of the topics. The founder of Red Hat, Bob Young, which is, I don't know if you all know Red Hat. It's a huge company headquartered in Raleigh, now a part of IBM, being led by Jim Whitehurst, who's the president of IBM. And Bob Young, the founder, said that he couldn't hold a job ever. And so one day he just got some business cards, and it said he was the CEO of Acme Corporation. And when he went over to take his mother for dinner, he's from Canada. She was so proud that her son held the job and he ran a company. So he never told his mother what he did. And then he went on to found Red Hat, which became a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Probably you've seen Red Hat. So, entrepreneur can sometimes be unemployed, but hopefully we can have more people starting great companies.
There's hope for me yet. I could be a billionaire. Is that the moral of that story?
Yeah, that's exactly the moral of the story.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Even you, Shaquille, could be a billionaire. Even you.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, it's actually possible.
Because when you work,
but you would have to make a goal of that, and you'd also have to be motivated.
Well, he's got two problems. You just
Peter, I'll have to rethink my plans of sneaking across the border into the United States then, because I'll become a billionaire and get taxed to death.
Yeah, you can't come here if you want to be a billionaire.
Yeah, if you want to be a billionaire, good luck with that. The taxes will take you down.
Oh, wow. We got some Republicans out here. That's good. I love
it. Italy would be the perfect place.
Italy would be the perfect place.
Yeah, because you just need to not to declare anything.
Italy does have
no taxes in Italy.
The US
they have payola in Italy. Buongiorno,
payola. The UK and Ireland have that fantastic non-domicile system, which I think is brilliant because it means that I am taxable on my worldwide income at a tax rate of 0%, but it triggers all the double taxation treaties. So I'm quite happy with that. I've looked around, but the US is still, if you want to completely evade all taxes and actually have the government owe you money, the US is still the #1 place. So if I was absolutely loaded, I would definitely go there. 70,000 pages of absolute gold. You can dig through that tax code and find all sorts of tricks.
Yeah, but I mean that's the name of the game here. That's the United States of America. I mean that's the reason we're the world's largest economy.
That's right. Screw the people, and that's just look after the people that can game the system.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
The
true.
United States of America.
Just to remind everybody that's from foreign countries and listening around the world, we are still the world's largest economy, and we're going to be talking about that today. With David Walker's going to be showing up. I already
He's
texted him.
amazing.
He'll be here. He'll be here. That's the reason I want Steve here, because they're both in the political thing. Because he was the Comptroller General of the United States of America for more than a decade, and he wrote a book, America 2040, Still a Superpower. Good question. But in the meantime, we can gloat, become arrogant. What do they call us over in Italy, Roberto? Nasty Americans or something like that. They have some bad name for us, where we travel abroad.
There's a full book of bad ways of defining the Americans, but I mean, there's no peculiar one. As long as you send us the money, we are happy.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the thing is,
I'll tell you something. This is interesting.
We'll take our money.
I had this theory since when I went to Europe as a younger kid, but Americans always had a bad rap, those Americans. But the difference might be that all classes in America can travel. So, if you are in New York, maybe you see mostly the upper class from Europe, because they're the ones who could travel, or Asia, and the people who come here to live, a lot of them, you see. But in America, Americans can afford to travel a bit more because we're the largest economy, at least for now. So exactly, look at Nick. He's going to go for a month, and he hasn't had a job for 37 years. No kidding. He has. That's not true. But anyway,
seriously, I've not worked for anybody.
No, you haven't worked for anybody.
My last job, I worked for somebody, was the city attorney's office in Miami Beach when I was a law clerk.
But you have a pension consulting company
It's good to own company. Let me tell you something. It's good to own companies that have recurring revenue. And as soon as my business partner wants to sell this company, I'll sell it. I don't really care. But if it has recurring revenues, I don't care either as well.
And that's why I want health insurance, because basically, I do some service, but basically once I sign somebody up, a lot of times it's just a recurring revenue.
Yeah, it's recurring revenue, right? Yeah.
And I'm not going to let this slide, right? So, Nick, you say it's great to own companies.
Yeah.
Great to have that revenue, but yet you're a big supporter of socialism and the democratic left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Because you want to own a company and then have the government take it away from you and be.
Well, let me tell you, you're on media now, buddy. On media, you got to say the right things, baby. And the right thing is,
I think say the wrong
the rich, give to the poor, because there's more poor people than rich.
I think say the wrong thing.
May I say something? I mean, if you're not rich, you can't afford to be a radical lefty. I mean, you have to be.
That's right.
At least.
Yeah.
You have to be you have to have a good salary in order to have the time to think about how to change the world and how to make the life better for others. If you have to work, to live, you don't have time to do these things. So, I mean, jokes. But I make a joke.
Yeah, you can't be a lefty unless you're rich. You're too busy working. What Roberto's saying, you're too busy working.
No, exactly.
To support yourself.
It tends to be the kids or the grandkids of the very rich that go for this sort of stuff, and it doesn't tend to be self-made people.
Okay, I'm a grandkid of a rich. My great grandfather. My great-grandfather owned a bank that became Bank One. We had trust company. Trust set up in 1944. What do you want?
The people that are working, though...
Let Steve talk. I want to hear the other side.
Is that they think that all these rich people hate being rich. Like, these people work their asses off to make the money and then go, gee, I wish I had less money. I'm an actor. I made $50 million in a film. This is terrible. This is what I call. Steve, over to you.
What were you going to say, Steve? Steve, let Steve in.
No. I just, first of all, let me just say as a facetious joke that work is very hard. I mean, this is the hardest I've worked in years. You know why? Because I can't drive around going on sales calls in addition to my political duties, where not saying I got out of work, but a lot of my job was going to golf courses, taking people out to dinner. And now all of a sudden I'm at my house all day for 13 months. I had to write all the time. I had to be on my email all the time. I couldn't say I'm on my way here, right? But what's interesting is I'm seeing this economy not so I'll give you an example. I got the car gassed up yesterday because I had 3 meetings scheduled today. And you know what? All those meetings got moved to Zoom calls. So what I'm finding is that the business is being transacted more with the distance learning technology, which is actually concerning to me because I was actually looking to getting out of the house. So I don't know whether this is occurring in all over your parts of the world, but I wanted to bring that up on Economics Monday because it seems to me that this new world might be what we're doing now, a more convenient way of doing business. And I don't like it because my eyes hurt by 4 o'clock.
Steve, let me bridge into what you just said, because I believe, the Fed this week just said all U.S. banks are safe. They have stress tests for 23 banks. And I believe that probably none of them are safe. And the reason I'm saying that is because of technology and Zoom, because the office vacancy rates in the United States and around the world are dreadful. I mean, dreadful. And this is a huge change. Take the U.S. banks. They're 90% leveraged. So they have, 10% pad. But now take New York as an example. The occupancy rate on June 1st in New York City was 20%. 20% in the office buildings. This month, it rose to 21%. Wow, a 1% increase. Dallas, LA. Dallas was like 40%, I think. LA was like 60%. But this is happening all over the world. So all these financial institutions are holding these big office buildings. And also, every week I read more and more. I keep clipping it out for Modern Investing with Sasha, our investment show on Wednesdays. Yeah. And every week I'm clipping out stories. Okay, there was a company, I forgot the name of it now, but it's 4,000 employees. They just offered their employees to work from home and take a 10% cut, and a huge amount of them took it. And then Amazon, Microsoft, Chase Manhattan Bank, all of them are doing different variations of either only come into the office 2 days a week, maybe come in 3 days a week. One of these big companies just said, I think it was Google said they wanted their employees to come in 2 or 3 days a week, and the employees are like outraged. They can't believe it. They're protesting. But a lot of the companies don't come in at all, come in 1 day a week. And it makes sense because it saves people the commute, saves people the money. But now you can have a world full of empty offices. What are they going to do? Convert to medical office buildings? Convert to residential, which costs a fortune? So this could be a huge crisis. And I believe it's at least 50% we're in the middle of it, and everybody's ignoring it.
Yeah, well, there's somebody who's not ignoring it because he follows, let's say, the American dream all the time. As a former Comptroller General of the United States of America, let's bring in to this conversation the Honorable David M. Walker. David, welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
What are you talking about? You talking about commercial office space?
Yeah, you're talking about commercial office space having problems, and your friends at the Fed saying all the banks are safe, while commercial office is heading huge vacancies.
And
what
David,
are your thoughts?
Huge vacancies. There's record vacancies around the world. 17% vacancy rate in the United States. Huge record subleases, and the occupancy in New York City is 20%. Now just went to 21. Dallas around 40. LA 60. All over the world, people are discovering, hey, we can have our employees work from home, and they're happier. They don't need to commute. It saves energy. We can actually pay them 10% less in a lot of cases. And they're offering people say, okay, move anywhere, but we'll pay you 10% less. And a lot of people are taking it. So what happens to all these office buildings when the commercial banks are 90% leveraged, insurance companies have their money in there? And I'll add one footnote. The Fed has, and Europe and the rest of the world has no way to stimulate anymore because they're already at basically zero. So everybody's worried about the Fed raising rates a quarter or an eighth of a point in the next 2 to 4 years from zero. And I just read today, Germany, you have to pay negative 0.2% in order to invest in a bond. So you pay them to take your money. And Europe just said they're going to stay flat at 0.18%. So basically, how now? They've been stimulating for decades, but now how do they stimulate if we are heading into another crisis?
Well, first, there's no question that there's a commercial real estate major challenge for commercial real estate because there are already some trends moving away from having as much office space. I must say that my profession, the CPA profession, my initial profession, was ahead of the curve on this because we normally have a lot of people out at clients, so client locations doing work, if you will. And we went to this concept of hoteling, even for partners, pretty early, to where we could significantly reduce the amount of office space that we had to have. And we assigned people either an office or a cubicle, depending on their level or whatever else, on a daily basis based upon whether they were coming in or not. And now you're seeing this big change. We'll have to see how it shakes out. But, the other thing you're talking about, Peter, is the Fed and other central banks, have played their cards. I mean, my personal view is our Fed hasn't been independent for a while, and it's about out of bullets. And we'll have to see how this thing shakes out. But I wish they would exercise more independence. One thing I also would like to see that would be changed is that we reverse what happened in the 1980s when a third mandate was added to the Fed's charter, where they were supposed to be concerned with unemployment. I think that's totally inappropriate. I think the Fed should be concerned with economic growth and stabilizing prices. And there's too many variables with regard to unemployment. And with the dramatic change in the economy, going to a skills-based economy and a knowledge-based economy, if you will, who knows what full employment is? And there's huge gaps between what we need and what we have as it relates to skills in order to increase productivity and further increase economic growth. And I'll just stop at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but David, what he's saying, which is also a problem, we haven't been with the Fed for many years. We haven't done any shows with them. I'm trying to get them back on again, but it takes months before they can make a decision up here.
I scared them off.
Oh, did you scare them off? I wasn't quite sure. Well, also Doug Tillett.
That's it. We're not coming.
Yeah, see, the other problem is our contact, Doug Tillett, retired from the Fed. So when you lose your contact, you got to go back and get your other contact. It's real pain. But what Peter says is pretty important. Once they lower interest rates down to zero, where's their bullet other than the interest rates?
They're out of bullets.
They're out of bullets.
Americans are going to go for negative interest rates. We're already penalizing savers enough. I mean, it's already negative. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about literally negative. It's already negative because you're getting paid less than inflation.
I don't think that you'll ever see the US go into negative territory in actual terms. I mean, in real terms, it is because of inflation. But I'm a little bit sort of baffled by the market at the moment because it seems to me there's already been an uptick in inflation. The market seems to be pricing that as just being transitory. Given the amount of government spending that's proposed, I can't see that being the case. We haven't seen an uptick in the 10-year yields yet. And so the market seems to be pricing it as being transitory. I think the market's wrong personally, but hey, every time I say that, I'm the one who ends up being wrong. So it just seems like a really weird kind of place for the US to be. And in relation to the displacement of people out of cities, that may not necessarily be a bad thing because it does actually enable people who live in rural parts of America who have normally struggled to get jobs since sort of being less industrialized and more sort of services based. It actually allows them to have jobs, and you can actually be somewhere quite remote, quite rural, and as long as you've got a decent internet connection, you can work from home. So there may be some positives to be gained out of it as well.
It's a great thing in some ways. I mean, it's efficient. Technology brings efficiency. So it's a good thing. People are happier. They don't maybe have to commute an hour or two to work, but that doesn't mean it's not going to cause a black swan financial crisis that I think it looks like we're in. I think it's better than 50%. We're already in it, and everybody's totally ignoring it. But it doesn't seem to be improving a lot. And these companies are going to say, "Wait a minute, how do I pay my rent when I have 50% occupancy in my office building?" And this is all over the world. And and also I think in the long run, I'm not worried about inflation at all, although it's possible. But technology is deflationary, and machines coming. In addition, every day, every week, I'm clipping out things again from Modern Investing with Sasha about how machines are replacing people. And that is very deflationary. This week, I saw the Domino's pizza truck that delivers pizza without driverless. And Lyft in Las Vegas just did they just reached level 4 driverless cars. Now, 9% of people in the United States alone are people who depend on driving other people for a living, and 2% truck drivers. But these driverless cars are coming in the next 3, 5 years, whatever, 7 years, and they're already level 4 means no safety driver, and they're testing another
Peter,
in
what is that
Arizona.
going to do to structural unemployment?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So unemployment is going to go up. You have office buildings. I'm saying we have two major crises that are going to keep inflation down, and plus the third thing, of course, is the governments are going to keep interest rates zero because they're issuing all the debt, and they don't want to pay more. So, I mean, I'm an advocate of holding 4% in gold as a hedge in case everything explodes. But other than that, I think it's deflation.
Can I just say, I don't actually think the government can just hold the debt at zero artificially for forever. I think market forces will end up being bigger than the government if market forces determine that rates are going to go up, especially if there is some inflation. There's not going to be no inflation. In relation to the employment thing, I know Tucker Carlson on Fox often talks about automation displacing workers. I actually don't agree. I don't think it will have that effect. We used to have typewriters, and they all went out of work. We used to have typesetters that worked at the big printing houses, and they all went out. I mean, technology has improved the lives of people, and technology generally makes people and makes countries wealthier. You've seen that in the agricultural sector, where it's a very small percentage of Americans that actually work in that sector compared to 100 years ago. So I'm not actually convinced that that's going to drive massive unemployment. I think it will just mean that people will move into other sectors. And you've got an aging population. So it's not as though all the people who are displaced now have to retrain. A lot of them are going to retire anyway. And you're going to have people going to new jobs and new industries that we may not have even thought of yet. That's what I personally think.
You're such an optimist.
Of course I am.
Okay, but the thing is, Uncle Joe is also very optimistic. I believe he got the Democrats and Republicans together at my favorite institution, the U.S. Senate, and decided to spend another $1.2 trillion. Yes. Okay, well, even though our buildings are going to be empty, and even though the car drivers will have nothing to do, the construction industry is going to boom because they're going to stick 1.2 trillion into building infrastructure. So, Peter, how can you say the economy is going to collapse when Uncle Joe still has the checkbook? The Fed has no room, but Uncle Joe has the checkbook.
Well,
he's decided to.
Two points about that. One, I thought about investing in construction companies and everything, or iron. But then I'm thinking, wait a minute. They're going to build bridges, but they're not going to be building any more buildings and office buildings, and that is probably a lot bigger in terms of bridges. So he could stimulate all he wants on bridges, but if we stop building everything else except for residential, we'll keep building for a while because interest rates being low. The other thing is machines. I want to go back to that a second. Listen, in the last month, I've seen a machine that does manicures automatically. I've seen Nurse Grace coming out, which is going to be out in the next few years, who can actually diagnose people. And you know what? Bill Gates says that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate 10 years. But now with technology, I think it's like 7 years. So I think people are underestimating it. People are smart, but machines are getting smarter every day. So, I mean, there will be jobs, but I don't think they're going to be as many jobs. And I think a lot of jobs are going to be replaced. As a matter of fact, one last thing. I read that some estimates are 40% of jobs are going to be replaced in the next 10 years.
Peter, I think you're underestimating the building bridges. It's a wonderful business. And, once you build something like Brooklyn Bridge and you can sell it for zillions of dollars, isn't it a great business?
Many times.
I have a question.
They should sell Brooklyn Bridge. I've driven over that several times. Those potholes. I was looking forward. I was like, oh my God, it's Brooklyn Bridge. I'm driving over and going, what? This is the richest country on earth. What are you talking about?
I have a question for David Walker, who's worked for a number of presidents, and it's great to see you, sir. You've made some great points in previous shows about America not having enough of a strategic plan, and it's given me a lot of thought, even as a policymaker myself at the local level, an elected official. If you were advising President Biden today, or my question is that when you look at infrastructure or you look at job creation, how do we replace all these jobs that are being automated? how can anything get done when the political system is so divisive? So, and I know that's a loaded question, but I'm just curious as to what do you think it's going to take to get us moving in the right direction? Because I hear a lot of talk, but I don't see things coming together.
Well, we have a great political divide on two dimensions. Number one is partisanship. Highly partisan. Margins are very close in the House and the Senate, which accentuates partisanship and the desire on behalf of the leaders for people to be loyal to the party, if you will. And the second issue, which I think is a bigger issue, is the ideological divide. The fact that most Republicans are to the right of the sensible center in the country, which is where a majority of people are, center right, center left. Most Democrats that are serving now are to the left of the sensible center. And as a result, they don't want to compromise. They want people to be ideologically pure. They don't want to compromise. I actually support the need for the $1.2 trillion traditional infrastructure bill. Our infrastructure has deteriorated dramatically. I do not support the several $1 trillion redefine what infrastructure is bill, which is what they're going to try to do next. And I think one of the things that the government has to do a better job of, it has to do a better job of looking to the future and what things do we need to do in order to better position us for the future. And one example of that is in education. The idea of subsidizing anybody who wants to go to any college for any degree makes no sense whatsoever. On the other hand, if we can end up determining what our needs are, with regard to skills and knowledge, and that doesn't necessarily mean STEM, it also means trades. We have a lot of needs with regard to the trades where you can make a really good living and raise a family, if you will. If we're more strategic about what we do, more forward-looking, and we gear our policies towards trying to get people to do the things where A, there's a need, and B, there's an opportunity, then that makes more sense. But that's not typically how government works. Government wants to give a bunch of people things on an unconditional basis that's unaffordable, unsustainable, and that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. And we're going to take.
Can I say that in your book here, which again, shameless plug, for the viewers, please buy this book and read it. This man is the kind of person that'll save America.
I got it.
Can I say, Dave? You wrote something quite interesting. You can see I've actually got several bookmarks in there. You wrote something quite interesting there where you're talking about sort of national service and not conscription as such, but giving young people opportunities through the military. So if you want to have a college degree, that can be subsidized by you giving service to the military. And I think that's also a great option for people that want to have trades. Right now, where there's a lot of talk about crime and things spiraling out of control. We talk about a lot of young people who perhaps come from disadvantaged backgrounds that don't have any options, that get caught committing something stupid. And back in the day, I know people in Australia that have said to me that when they were growing up, you did something stupid, your choice was jail or the military, and most people would go into the military and they'd have a great career. I think that's a great way to divert, especially young offenders. Saying to them, look, you've done this, you've screwed up. Now you're going to go and be a welder or whatever, give them some sort of a pathway through the military. And it gives them.
Let me clarify real quick. It's not just the military. We have that already. People can go into the military and get assistance with regard to their education through the military. My definition of national service is not just the military. It could be government at other levels. It could be not-for-profits. It could be occupations where the country as a whole has a critical need, including, for example, where we need more doctors in rural areas or things of that nature. We need to have a strategy, and we need to execute on that strategy. Right now, we have no strategy. And so we just throw a bunch of things out there that in many cases we can't afford and sustain and don't work.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick commercial break and then we'll be right back. Hey, we're back. Oh, we're out.
It used to be a show free of commercials, and now the capitalists have got hold of it and put commercials in.
Are invading the IBM TV network.
And Sasha, I didn't see any Bitcoins in there.
And yeah, there wasn't anything about Bitcoin, but there is
one.
I do have a Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, are they
It's
worth
about
anything?
20,000 less now than it was a couple of months ago, but that's okay.
I like this little thing. Huh?
40,000.
Little Bitcoin. Is this worth anything, David? I mean, I got one Bitcoin. Didn't seem
What
like
a great
up to 35,000
Allegedly, it's
today.
worth 30,000. I'd sell, but that's okay.
yeah, but I've been trying to sell this since it was worth 6,000. And the real problem is finding buyers.
Value over the space of weeks. What a fantastic safe haven! It's just like gold, isn't it?
Is it really? I don't
Dreadful.
think so. Well, what do you think this 1.2 trillion is going to do to the economy? I see. I'm back on pro market again, stock market, because when the government prints 1 trillion, it just floods the economy. The market tends to react positively. I mean, they're going to go up, and I just see the market continuing advancing.
1.2 trillion over 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
It's 1.2 trillion over 10 years. And the other thing is you got to keep in mind when you're thinking about the market is what are your alternatives for investing?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons that people are putting so much money in the stock market is where else are you going to invest?
That's a problem. I mean, I totally agree with you because that's a problem we're having at our pension company right now because we're forced to go into insurance annuity contracts that pay 1%. I mean, and it's just really awful. I mean, I just don't know where else you're going to go because the fixed instruments they just don't pay anything anymore.
But that's why this particular bit of government spending is something that I don't mind too much because I think, not being American, I shouldn't care, but I think that it's positive because you're actually investing in the country. It's not just being given away as benefits to people. It's actually something that's being invested into, such as real hard infrastructure. So I think that's a good thing. But I've got a question. I'm not seriously suggesting this, but I do have a question. If unlimited government spending, as the Democrats seem to be proposing, will never have any adverse effect on inflation and will not devalue the dollar in any way, shape, or form. Hey, that's a broad-based taxation system. Why not just do away with taxes altogether and just print $4 or $5 trillion every year? If it works so well, then why not just do that?
That's a good question.
It doesn't work over time.
Dave, can you see why the Fed doesn't want me on?
No. I got you. I got you. The truth is, we've been living for today and not taking steps to help create a better tomorrow for at least 20 years.
You talk about hard infrastructure. I think that this is one of the issues, that hard infrastructure is often the purview of local governments and state governments. And oftentimes their constituencies don't want them to spend money on things that seem frivolous, like why pave that footpath? Why do that when you could instead save the bears or save the trees or build a new swimming pool or whatever it may be? And that's why a lot of these infrastructure things have fallen away. I can tell you that when I visited the United States, I was shocked at the condition of the roads and bridges over there. I was really surprised. I think most of my European friends, we talk about that when I'm in Europe. It's really, really surprising to see. But there is a little bit of unfairness in the fact that the federal government's going to pay for things, and some states may not need the money to build their roads because they've taken care of it, whereas other states haven't. That could be a little bit unfair. But as for right now, coming out of the coronavirus and trying to stimulate the economy, investing in hard infrastructure, I think, is a good idea. The rest of it, I think a lot of that's a really, really poor idea. Non-mean-tested funding for minority groups, any group, but minority groups is a bad idea. You're judging people by skin color, that's divisive, but also you're not even means testing it to find out whether or not they need the money. What ends up happening is that rich black kids of actors and athletes in Beverly Hills are going to end up getting an advantage, and poor white kids and poor black kids in other parts of America don't end up with anything, and that's a terrible way of doing it.
It really comes down to smart money management. I mean, look, the reason we can't keep printing money is because we have $27 trillion up from 17 or 18 within the last few years. And that's on the books. Off the books, liabilities for Medicare may be 100 trillion or 200 trillion, and the world, by the way, in defense of the United States, has done the same thing. They promised free health care for aging populations. They haven't funded it. Every country on the world is in similar situations of promising the world. So what happens when your debt goes up and up and up is your interest rates have to come down because of compounding. So what you don't want is 200 trillion in debt or 100 trillion in debt, or whatever each country's debt is compared to their GDP, and paying interest. The point I'd make is right now, even on the 27 trillion, if interest rates went up to 3%, we would be paying as much on the interest rates as the U.S. defense budget. But it's going to get much worse. So in 10 years or whatever, when the debt is 100 trillion or 200 trillion, and debt around the world, no country is going to want to or be able to pay a compounded interest rate on that. So that's where the world basically flattens out in terms of productivity. We're at zero rates. You can't stimulate it anymore. This is why the answer, the last point I'll bring out, which is the most relevant, is what do you do if you have some money to invest? And you better plan, like we discussed on Modern Investing with Sasha. I look for companies that won't be affected by any crises that I see coming, but also that favor technology, a company like Microsoft or something like that, Amazon, that can keep growing and growing because they are the technology. Or a company like Consumer Staples, where you'll get an increasing dividend because people, even if, will be paying it. Safety. And every week I spend sometimes 10 or 20 or 30 hours looking for one company, and sometimes I find them and sometimes I don't, where it pays a decent dividend and you get some safety too towards what I think is coming, these big waves.
Yeah, are we living now in the Roaring 20s, David, and then the next thing comes the Depression of the 30s? I mean, isn't that really where the United States is heading? I know still a superpower in 2040, but with our economic policies by your friends in Washington, D.C., just spending money with no plan, aren't we heading for another Great Depression here in the United States, David?
Well, I sure hope not, but you can't act like you're exempt from the laws of prudent finance and double down, which is what some in Washington want to do now. I mean, I'll throw out a question: what would interest rates be if the Fed wasn't buying trillions of dollars of debt every year?
Yeah.
Well,
the Fed is self-dealing in U.S. debt.
And so are other countries. Nick, I just want to
I didn't say they're not, but what would they do?
But it's very important, Nick. You said what's the United States, but Europe and countries around the world are in debt. It's not just the United States.
But we don't, what I also say is we don't have market-based interest rates.
And I think, Dave, you probably should. And I don't necessarily think the interest rates would go up if the market was prepared to do that. But the Fed wants to step in to make sure that that doesn't suck up all the money, so that it's not circulating around the economy. I think that you could make an argument for getting rid of the Fed. But I personally think, I'm critical of them, but I personally think the Fed does an all right job.
The Fed is going to be critical because they're the ones who are going to keep doing what they're doing, and it's called yield curve control. And this is the future. And they've done this. Wait a minute. They've done this in Japan in 2016. The United States did it in World War II for 11 years. They basically bought every bond over a certain interest rate in order to keep the economy stimulated. So I'm not worried the next 5 years because we can bring rates even lower, and they're probably going lower. It's a 40-year trend. But what happens when we get to zero in the United States? And then the world's going to be facing these same issues with office space, technology. People will survive and things will adjust, but it's going to be a painful and expensive process in terms of. They
can't do that forever. I don't think that they can do that forever. Their attempted control of the yield curve they're really only able to do it across the short, maybe the midterm curve. Once you get past that, the Fed is really beholden to the market. And I think that they can try to artificially hold interest rates at that level for a while, but eventually the market's bigger than the Fed.
They did it for 11 years. In World War II, they bought every single bond over a certain interest rate. They can print money endlessly and keep rates down. And they're going to have to.
Keep in mind, Peter, in World War II,
coming into
People
World
were
War II.
focused on other things during times of war. They weren't focused on this.
Yeah,
But
and with
also,
that,
the thing we forget. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, we're going to take another commercial break, and we'll be right back. Anyway, it's a pretty good show if you haven't seen it, Swiss Impact. Then you get the European version of investing with impact investing and some of the faith. They have faith investing funds like the Vatican that hold like $1 trillion in assets. I mean, it's a whole different world over there. And
No taxes in the Vatican.
Pardon?
No taxes in the Vatican. It was on my list of countries to explore.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, the thing is also what I found fascinating, Shaquille, is the Prince of Liechtenstein. He's been on the show several times, and he's worth more than the Queen of England. But we get all this stuff about the Queen of England, and the reason why he owns the bank. He owns a huge international
Somebody
bank.
tell Michael to allow us to have air conditioning in Liechtenstein, please, because that's what his right decree is. No air conditioning in Liechtenstein at all. So you're sitting there in the heat. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Really? Okay. Well, yeah, you would know better than I would because I don't really traverse over there. But the European economy is also something that we do have to look at and where it's going. David, you were talking about the United States playing without a plan. Now, Sasha, who's a chess player, and I do a little bit of it too, usually you have to have a plan when you play chess. Just a game. It's a 64-square game. How come the United States of America, which I remind Shaquille, the world's largest economy, doesn't have a game plan between
Not on
now
PPP,
and here?
by the way.
What?
Not on PPP. China is bigger than America on PPP.
This past US and PPP in 2016.
It's an unfair comparison, but still.
Okay. How is it?
Let Nick say it as long. Enjoy it while he can.
That's what I'm doing. I'm going to say it as long as I can before China takes us over.
I want to be the ambassador to Liechtenstein. How do I do?
How
How
can
much
the United
do I have
States of
to raise?
America not say we have a long-term plan between now and 2040 to make sure that the economy is going to be around and our
It's been run by idiots.
I think it's difficult to plan.
What's going on in Washington?
I think it's difficult to plan more than about 5 years, okay? And ironically, the Government Performance and Results Act, which is a federal law, requires departments and agencies to do strategic planning and to have 5-year plans and to update them periodically. But there's no requirement for there to be a consolidated, future-focused, results-oriented, integrated plan for the U.S. government. That's what's missing. And as a result, what you end up getting is you get all these different departments and agencies doing their own thing. And in many cases, it's not coherent, it's redundant, there are gaps, and so that's the challenge.
Yeah. And what about the budget, like the 1.2 trillion infrastructure? It sounds to me that both parties have wings that want to derail it. Some people say it's not enough. Some people say it's too much. Is this 1.2 trillion really even going to go through? Because I think Bernie Sanders was saying, well, you didn't give enough money away to poor people. And
the Republicans agreed to go with it. The Republicans said, we'll pass it through, and then they wanted to stick this other big monstrosity on the other side of it.
No, I think the infrastructure issues, I think the Republicans are willing to agree on. It's the social infrastructural issues that the Democrats are so hot on, that are part of the heart and soul issues, that are part of the divide that the Republicans can't agree on, except maybe the far left Republicans like Romney and a few other crazies. But I think that's the real problem. We can't have a long-term plan as long as we have this ideological war and the government's engaged in social engineering. Either side pushing, tug me this way, tug me that way every 2 years when we have an election. The problem is we have no coherent plan because we have no coherent ideology. We used to have a coherent, more coherent ideology, and now the left is taking that, put it upside down. When we talked about earlier in the comments, I saw that we were talking about our national service organization. Well, look what Obama did back when he was president. Funded 57,000 community organizers and protesters and activists. And what do? They wreaked havoc around our country and destroyed business or created the environment to destroy businesses and other kinds of things. Look, COVID was seen as an opportunity politically to take advantage. Democrats did that, and they pinned the COVID thing onto Trump and used that as an election issue. I mean, it's pretty clear what happened. And so if you're going to have service organizations, they got to be apolitical. They've got to be focused on public works, other things, not carrying signs downtown in Seattle, trumping up and down, pushing one program or the other, Black Lives Matter included, when all lives matter, right? So it's a real big issue. It's the heart and soul issues that are the reason why we can't have a plan. It's the reason why we have a divide. It's the reason why we can never agree. And as long as that ideological divide is there, we won't be able to agree, and we'll still be fighting. And so and the problem is, if we don't get that under control, we'll end up in a civil war. Don't want to see that, but it almost happened during Trump.
Well, it's interesting that you say that when you've got the military now talking about focusing on white rage as if that is some sort of national security issue. It just doesn't make any sense that you're becoming this divided. The hate needs to be turned down in politics so that people can actually work out what they agree on and try to get the country moving somewhat in the same direction on most issues, and then debate the others. That's what I think needs to happen, not just in America but across the Western world.
Just as a follow-up to Dan Worthington's point on how broken we are, just to give you a political perspective as an elected official, I think one thing to realize is in the year 2000, only $1 billion was spent on federal elections. Last year, that number was $14 billion. That is a terrible problem in American politics. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, the money is controlling the system. The politicians, through gerrymandering, are deciding the voters that vote for them rather than those voters deciding who they vote for. And, all of this is happening while the extremism within each party is making it very hard to negotiate with each other. We often forget that during the 1960s, political parties, even on the Democratic side, you had Southern segregationists who were against many of the civil rights legislations versus some of the Democrats from the North, but they were able to develop good policies and work with President Lyndon Johnson to get good voting rights legislation passed. Today, you're seeing President Biden, also the President of the United States, saying that he wants a bipartisan infrastructure deal, and then saying, if I don't get the $6 trillion on top of it, I'm not going to pass it. You can't do, and I, even though Joe Manchin is my friend, I actually agree with Senator Manchin that bipartisan should be listening to both sides and getting something done. Because if you continue to jockey, I know Democrats, progressives really hate me when I say that. I'm not even allowed to say the word Joe Manchin at Democratic events, but I think he's actually fighting for many of the right things, and I just wanted to throw it out there.
President Biden misspoke. He misspoke, and he's corrected the record. He said something last week where he said that he wasn't going to sign the $1.2 trillion bipartisan bill unless he got the other. Now he's gone back. That would have been bad faith negotiations to the nth degree. And he's now said he will sign it. Now, the left is going to try to get trillions more through budget reconciliation, which is a straight party line vote. And let's hope that Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema and a few other people, think more about it. Because all you need on that is 50-50, and then the vice president votes to break the tie. But there's a big difference between traditional infrastructure where we need it and we have bipartisan support, and these other efforts that are designed to dramatically expand the size and scope of government on an across-the-board basis, which and call it infrastructure when in reality it has little or nothing to do with infrastructure.
When they tried to force through the filibuster changes, Lindsey Graham said that they just denied the quorum. So I really think that using reconciliation this way is an abuse of the process. And I think that most people, most Americans have been really frustrated at the political gamemanship. As, again, I know here in Australia, we're very frustrated at the political gamemanship that's gone on pre-COVID in Canberra. So, it's just not on. Politicians shouldn't be acting like this. They've got a responsibility to people, and they've got a responsibility to represent their constituencies. This is just completely unacceptable. It really is.
The funny thing about the filibuster, I can't believe the Democrats are like, okay, let's get rid of the filibuster because we want to do what we want. But in a year, there's going to be an election. And I personally think that the Democrats are going to get slaughtered. And I think they're going to lose the House, and I think they're going to lose the Senate, most likely. And they're going to be very happy that they have a filibuster. And then in 2024, when they probably lose the presidency, then they're really going to be happy about the filibuster. So I don't understand why they think so short term, but I think they just
it's crazy that they have this disdain for Joe Manchin because he's from West Virginia, right? So what's he supposed to do? You have to have a look at the feelings amongst Virginians. So you've got some idea as to what they think. They voted for Trump overwhelmingly, so he's got to play that he's actually representing his constituency. So for the Democrats to just hammer him all the time like that, what they're doing is they're saying, if you vote for us, great, but if you don't, we're not listening to you. If you're not a supporter of us, we're not listening. Talk to somebody else. Talk to the hand. That's terrible.
Shaquille, let me piggyback on something you said before about budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation was created in the 1980s. The purpose of budget reconciliation was to facilitate being able to make tough choices on taxes and spending in order to reduce deficits and debt burdens. And since in the 21st century, it's been used by both parties for the opposite. It is outrageous. It is unethical. It is unacceptable, and it needs to stop.
And with that, we're going to have a good day because we're going to have to end Economics Monday, and we'll see you all in about 2 weeks. I'll be in New York next week, so it'll be 2 weeks from now. We'll be back on for our viewers around the world. We'll see you in about 2 weeks. Bye.